You're India's first female tennis superstar.
And it came with its price.
Sania Mirza.
You have the love bites from tennis.
Yeah, I don't know if they're love bites, but they're...
Would you say destiny or luck plays a role at all?
To the mixed doubles final.
There's a saying, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, even if nobody else has done it before. If you put your heart and soul in something, you can do it. What would you be ready to give to watch Sania play on this court one day? My mom said, I'll give my life, I'd give everything. And she did. My husband is very hands-on. Yeah, he might be hands-on. It's not going to be a 50-50. I've been put in this place forever, Chief.
What happens when a professional sports person retires? Media has been commenting on your outfit choices and clothing choices for a long time now.
How many times have we heard that in our lives? As young girls, we've heard no many more times than we've heard yes. Sit properly, do this, don't talk too loudly, don't laugh too loudly, don't do this.
Personally, have you ever felt like you've been in a position where the patriarchy has been impossible to digest?
Have you ever heard of a man being questioned about his outfit? Do we live in an equal world today? The answer is
Hi.
hi.
Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What if I asked you to introduce yourself?
I mean, I think me as a person, I'm just this lazy person who wants to sit in bed in pajamas all day. So that would be my introduction. Like, hi, I'm Sania Mirza. I really want to just chill at home. But my life's the opposite of that and has always been. So right now, my introduction so stands as used to play tennis, did that for 30 years of my life, and yeah, evolving, I guess, now into other things, and obviously a mother.
Amazing. So, Sania, I want to set the intent for this conversation. My aim here is that today, if anyone wants to be a sports person or a sportswoman, I hope they can, by the end of this conversation, they can know what it takes to actually be on that journey, right? What is that? What is the journey that you have lived to be number one in a sport in the world?
The secret is that you need to put in the work. You need to obviously sacrifice a lot. You need to sacrifice on family time. You need to sacrifice on regular, normal life. You need to be ready to put your body through pain over years and years. You need to be ready to almost punish your body in ways that, the body doesn't want to be, which is why we end up in injuries. You need to be able to understand that losses are going to be a part and parcel of your everyday. And but you need to also remember that I started playing tennis because I love to play tennis. And I think that's really the secret. The secret, if there is something, it's probably just that you need to remember why you started. But there's no other secret to success, really. That secret is just to kind of keep going.
Would you say destiny or luck plays a role at all?
I think destiny does play a role. And eventually, we do believe that whatever is meant to happen is going to happen. But that doesn't mean we're just going to sit and be like, "Achha, it's going to happen," right? Like, we're still going to have to work for it. And yeah, we have to put in the hours, we have to put in the work. I mean, if you felt a certain way, I can ask you the same question, and just by sitting there, you're not going to be who you are or have brands come to you. It doesn't happen that way. You got to work your way towards it. And so the short answer is yes, destiny does play a role. Luck, especially in my job, luck plays a huge role.
Really?
It does play, because I think that being able to get the opportunity is one thing, but being able to perform at the opportunity given to you is another. And that's some luck there, right? Because you could have a bad day.
There.
Yeah, or also you could have a bad day on that day, and maybe you're better than that day when you were playing, but that was the most important match that would probably make or break you. So you'll be lucky. You have to be a little lucky to be able to have your best day on the best opportunity given to you. Does that make sense?
Of course, absolutely. Was there ever a moment or a match where you felt like?
So I think for me, amazingly enough, like, so when I was, so it was '05, and there was a tournament in Hyderabad. It was a world ranking tournament, and that was my breakthrough year as well, '05. And this tournament was in February, and I had a wild card to this tournament. So I was not meant to play this tournament, but because it was in Hyderabad and it was the highest level tournament that had ever happened in the country. So it was a WTA, and it was
Sorry,
me.
what tournament?
So WTA, it's a world ranking tournament basically, but it's the higher of the world ranking tournaments basically. So it was the second time it was happening in the country, and there was me, and there was a couple more girls, and from India who had wildcards. And so wildcard is basically, if your ranking isn't up there, you still get a chance to play that tournament. They happened to lose in the first round, and I happened to win the tournament. So for me, that's opportunity given, and then for me, that's opportunity taken. And to be very honest, I think a lot of my life changed because of that week. Because I won in Hyderabad, and I won such a big event in Hyderabad, and I wasn't meant to win at all, and happened at my hometown. Like, it was a fairy tale. Yeah, it was like a absolute, like, if somebody had to write down a fairy tale. And that was an opportunity given, and it was an opportunity taken from me. Now, if something would have been up and down, maybe I would not have been able to win also, and maybe things would be different. So yeah, so that, to answer the question, destiny does play a role. I mean, there's a saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
of course. So it's not like you're going to just sit there and be like, I'm not going to work hard, and if I'm lucky, this is just going to happen. You still have to work hard.
Yeah.
And the harder you work, the luckier you're going to get.
I love that. I love that you said that you have to put in the work, but you have to keep putting in the work. It's not that one time you put in the work, right? So probably in your 10th year, you've worked harder on your body and on your game than you have even in the beginning. And does that, at some point, does that get strenuous? Does that get like...
I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I wanted to wake up every single morning at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and go to the gym and play tennis for 7 hours a day. I mean, I really did.
So can you take us actually through the routine a bit? What is the routine of someone who's, while you are actively still pursuing tennis, what was that routine like?
So the routine would be when I was in school. So I started playing tennis when I was 6 years old. And I used to play about 5 times a week at that point, which, but it was more like a hobby rather than something that I was pursuing. And I think by the time I was 12 is when I really knew and understood, obviously with the help of my parents, that this is what I wanted to do. And I would wake up in the morning around 5:36. My school started at 8 o'clock. I had a fitness session. So I used to do fitness for an hour. I had permission to miss assembly, so I could reach 20 minutes later. And my school was amazing. Like, for those times, a school really supported sport, and
what school was this?
I was in Nassau school. It was an all-girls school, and it was amazing, actually, and that's why I think everything needs to come together in order for someone to succeed. It can't just be like bits and pieces, right? So everything needs to come together. And they were super, and they would give me permission to leave half an hour earlier so that I could make it to my practice at 3 o'clock, stuff like that. So I used to wake up in the morning, I used to have a fitness, and then because I could miss assembly, I used to go 20 minutes, half an hour later. I used to sit from 8:30, and the school was till 2 o'clock. I could leave at 1:30 because there was PE. So my mom would come with...
And you were doing enough of that.
I was doing enough of PE and sport. So I don't necessarily think that they cared too much about that, because I was the sports captain eventually anyway. And then I would leave at 1:30, and my mom would bring the food, and I would change in school, and I would sit in the auto and go with my mom to basically the other side. So we were in Hyderabad, we would go to Sikandrabad, and at that time there were no flyovers or anything. So we would go 45 minutes to an hour, and then we would be there from 3 to 7.
This was 5
playing.
times a week.
This was 5 times a week. But this was later when I was 12, 11, 12. And then as you, like you rightly said, as you get more and more into it, and you get closer to becoming and wanting to, becoming professional, it gets harder and harder. after that, when I was 16, it was very similar. We used to spend about 7, 8 hours on the court and in the gym and everything together, because by that time there was no studying. You were done with your boards and you were done with your entire focus was just to sort of.
And who was with you while you were?
My parents, my mom and my dad. We are a small family of just me, Anam, my sister, and my parents. And without them, nothing would have happened, right? Like nothing, because they were the ones that recognized the talent. They were the ones that pushed me into it first. They were the ones who, and I think somewhere that's true for every person that is successful, that at some point in their lives, I shouldn't say every, but a lot of successful people, that at some point through their beginning of their lives, or where this journey that they're on, it's the parents that really believe in them, right? Before anybody else. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure it
would
was the
agree.
same for you. I mean,
It was.
yeah, it really is.
was.
Like, at a time when cricket and nothing but cricket's sold in this part of the world, my parents dared to see a dream and said that we have a young daughter from a family of 2 daughters who is going to play Wimbledon one day. And we came from a city of Hyderabad. At that time, it was a very small city.
Wow.
And they dared to dream first, and then they helped me dare to dream. So without them, I wouldn't be anywhere.
Was Wimbledon discussed before you got there? How many years before you got there was it, dinner table conversation?
It wasn't discussed with me though. It was discussed between the two of them. So when I was playing tennis and there was a final going on, and I think it was Steffi Graf and Conchita Martinez playing a Wimbledon final. And my dad said to my mom, what would you be ready to give to watch Sania play on this court one day? And my mom said, I'll give my life. I'd give everything. And she did. And she did. And that's why for me to play Wimbledon and win Wimbledon was more special than winning any other Grand Slam, because that was where the dream really began for my parents. And I was able to fulfill that for them.
That's beautiful. So when you're on the court, right, or you're in the gym, your parents, I'm assuming here either one of them is with you.
Yeah.
How does this work, right? Again, just taking you back to the crux. It's like we're speaking to young India here. They want to do this and they want to show this video to their parents, because you need that support. When you're at that tender age, a lot of the times to become what you've achieved, like you explained, you started at the age of 6. So you need that really strong.
So I think that what it really takes is for parents to be realistic. Look, I think that what is the safer bet? The safer bet is to say, let's educate this child and let's send her or him to a medical college. That's a one-time investment. We put in some money. At least we know we'll get a doctor out of it. What happens when you want somebody to be an athlete? What if you want somebody to be a boxer or a tennis player or a cricketer even, or an influencer? Like what, there's no guarantee of return.
Absolutely.
There's no guarantee of return. The only thing that's going is time, the work, in our case, the money, because the finances are quite high in tennis, and the sacrifice and commitment, leaving everything of your other parts of your life out. And you're here seeing this mad dream that nobody's ever done from this country or from this side of the world, and you're thinking we are going to be those people who are going to do it. So it takes a little bit of crazy to do that as well. And I think that most successful people will tell you that they were a little crazy to believe in themselves, right? Because it's very, very, the amount of times that I've heard, you can't do this. Nahi, kaise karegi? Like ladki hai. How many times have we heard that in our lives, right? As young girls, we've heard no many more times than we've heard yes. Sit properly, do this, don't talk too loudly, don't laugh too loudly, don't do this. Oh, how long? Okay, she was young, she was playing, abhi kya? She's gonna go out and play in shorts with the boys, like this is a boys thing to do, abhi seriously, usko padhai mein dalo. This is all my parents heard, but they shielded me so well from it that I only understood and heard it much later in my life when it didn't bother me anymore.
Yeah, and you had your own conscience.
Yeah, and I had my own belief as well, right? But but my parents, And I think that's what every parent has to do, is to protect their child from all that negative that goes around us when we're trying to do things that are outside of the box.
Yeah.
And we're talking about over 30 years ago. I mean, but a lot has changed
A
today.
different era of the media, a different era of life, of
And everything.
of equality, to be really honest.
Yeah, I mean, do we live in an equal world today? No. The answer is no. Do we live in a better world than it was 31 years ago? 100% yes. Do we have some ways to go? Yeah, we do. But we are improving, and we're trying to have conversations like this to try to bring awareness to it. And I don't think even those existed at that time. There was this one time that we were at a event. It was me, Nikhat Zareen, and I think it was Saina, and then there was Joshna Chinnappa. So all these girls from different sports who've been number one in their sports, we're all saying the same thing, that these are the things that were said to us growing up. And we all come from different cultures, different cities, different backgrounds, different religions, different faiths, everything, different social statuses. And it didn't matter. The questions were the same. The doubts were the same. And that's where when we meet each other, it's like such a connect, because straight away we know, I'm like, we literally feel the other person's been through exactly what you've been through.
But you had I know you spoke up about this at the age of 19, when there were a lot of comments passed on your outfits. I think media has been commenting on your outfit choices and clothing choices for a long time now. But you had the courage to be able to respond to that.
So, I mean, my parents taught me and continue to teach me in many ways, by example as well, that if you are being true to yourself and you're being truthful to your cause, whatever that may be, and you're not hurting other people in the process, then you should speak up and you should speak the truth, your truth. That might not be liked very much by some people, but that's okay. And I think that I also came at a time when social media and media, like electronic media, was really on this up.
Yes, more traditional
media.
media.
Yeah. And when I was coming up, it was more like newspapers and stuff, which was regular reporting. And that's when this boom of like social media and electronic. So it got boring for them also to write about forehands and backhands and serves. Like, how much are they going to write about that? So then they wanted to write about who I was going for dinner with and who I entered a party with, or why did I go and have a party, and what did I eat. And also, out of all the girls that are there today, in terms of whether it's a Sindhu or a Saina, they were a bit younger than me. So I was that first person who had to face the brunt of all of it. It's like the first child syndrome, that happens in a family.
I mean, you're India's first female tennis superstar, right?
Yeah, and it came with its price. Being a star and being and everybody saw obviously the glitz and the glamour and the really cool parts about it. That all of a sudden you're on billboards and you're on ads and you're doing all of this. But it also came with a heavy price, because people actually didn't know how to sort of be, because they were not used to it. They were only used to male superstars when it came to sport. They weren't used to female. Today, we've got, like 30 years ago or 20 years ago, we couldn't name anybody outside of PT Usha. Who could you name? Another woman athlete that you could really name and be like, she's a superstar? There was nobody. And then there was me. And then after that, like today, a lot of our medals come from female athletes, at Olympics. Our world champions are females. You have, you can name at least 10 or 15 girls that you're like, what? These people are on billboards. They're doing ads, because of the fact that we've evolved, into more of an accepting nation of women athletes, because it used to be different before, and that's a fact.
And I do feel it's also because can be followed, right? There is a path that's carved out that can be, of course, there's if not as much as more hard work that needs to be put in, but you've still painted a visual, which I think is so I think it's so important to be able to to see that dream. First you see that dream and then you live it. And I think in your case, like you're saying, I think it was maybe your parents who were, who saw that dream because there was someone who envisioned it. And
Yeah, I mean, my mom was my dad was a builder. He wanted to be a cricketer, lost his parents very early in his life, and suddenly had to become a grown up at 21 years old. So he couldn't fulfill his dream, and they decided that whether a boy or a girl, if they had a child, they would want the child to play a sport. My mom was predominantly a homemaker. I mean, she ran a small printing press and stuff, but she was a homemaker. And my mom was the one who pushed that dream. So it's so important to understand that, in our part of the world, they almost don't give respect to homemakers, saying that "Arey, ye to kuch nahi karti, she's just at home with the kids." But a homemaker saw this dream of becoming number one in the world. So there is no bounds to the dreams that you can see.
that anyone can see.
That anyone can see.
So where do you think your mom's dream came from? Did she was she into different sports?
No, my mom never played professional sport, but she was very sporty. Like she used to horse ride. And in those times when she was 15, 16 years old, she was like, she would
She
go
grew up
horse
in
ride.
Hyderabad?
She's from Mumbai. My mom's from Mumbai. My dad also grew up in Mumbai.
Okay.
And my mom is a go-getter. In that relationship of my dad and my mom is the one, if you tell her that I want a bottle of water, she will go and get you. And I was like, it's okay, I'm not that thirsty. I can have it after. She's like, no, I will get you that bottle of water right now. She's that person. My dad is the person who's a lot more laid back. He'll take calculated decisions and be like, okay, maybe 5 minutes later, that bottle of water, you can have it. So it's that, and that's why they're like chalk and cheese, but I think that's why it works. That's why it works so well. And my mom, and I always tease my sister, and I think because of that, my nature has become quite closed, and like I don't really have too many friends even today. So I'm just not that person because I think I was so engrossed in playing and traveling and so committed to what I was trying to do, and it would take so much emotional energy out of you as well because it's a very high pressure job. Like you're constantly, like, imagine it like any job, like your job, you wake up in the morning, you're like, I need to win today. No, like nobody does that. It's only athletes, and that's what drives us a little mad, I think, because every morning we wake up and we're like, okay, we have to win, we have to be better than yesterday. Like we almost become obsessed with that, obsessed with the feeling of wanting to, with that thought, because every day you want to be better than the day before.
And that dopamine also, right?
I mean, there is nothing that can replace me walking onto a center court. Nothing. I'm telling you, it's been a little bit over a year since I've officially retired. And the high of winning a tennis match, the high of walking onto a court, them announcing your name, walking onto a court with cheers, like people, just going nuts. There is no high that I can do that can replace that. And I think people ask me, like, do you miss tennis? And I'm like, not really, because I think I had enough of tennis because I played it for 30 years. What I do miss is that feeling. I miss the feeling of winning. I miss the feeling of competing. I don't miss the practice. I don't miss those long hours of like gym, and I don't miss the injuries and the pain, but I do miss that feeling. And that's a feeling that I know. And the saddest part of when you retire is I remember thinking and crying to myself that I will never have that feeling again, no matter what I do. I mean, I could have the best day of my life, but that very feeling I won't have.
You obviously feel that vacuum now, right? In so many ways.
Yeah, there's they say sports people, professional athletes die twice, and that really resonates with a lot of professional athletes because you do feel like there's a death of a life that you've been living. I mean, imagine I was doing that from the age of 6 till 36. And so for 30 years, I did nothing else except wake up every morning and say, I want to be better than yesterday and try to be better and try to win. And so to answer your question, I don't know if it's a vacuum that I feel now, but I remember the first couple of months, it almost felt like mourning. Like you mourned a part of your life. Like the day I retired, I went to the press conference, I finished the match, I went to the press conference and I was not emotional at all. I was blank actually. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I don't feel anything. My son came with me to the press conference. He sat on my lap. I was fine. I smiled. I gave the interviews, whatever. Went back to the house. It was here, my last match in Dubai. Went back home. There was like a lot of people from India and my friends who had come to watch. And I went to the bedroom and I cried for about 3 hours straight. And I didn't know why I was crying. And I kept crying and I kept crying and I could not stop. And I was not crying with tears. I was howling like there was a death, you know? And you just feel like I woke up in the morning the next day fully drained. And when I woke up in the morning, I was like, wow, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have a practice to go to. I don't need to go to the gym. I don't need to schedule anything. I don't need to schedule my physiotherapy. I don't need to do anything. And that first 2 months was tough, like because you were just readjusting.
I can imagine that being mentally very difficult.
You know, a lot of athletes, when they retire, you might have heard they get into gambling and they get into a lot of this. Like a lot of them go bankrupt, and it's not a coincidence because they're constantly looking for that high. Because you're so used to that high, I think that's my opinion. Like everybody has their own idea why they're doing it, but I definitely think because they're looking for a win. Because you don't really win once you retire, right? Like, what do? You don't win a day. So I was like, after like 6 months, I said, okay, you know what? I'll try to learn and I'll try to play paddle a little bit. That didn't work. That lasted very, very short.
I was very excited to hear how that turned.
That did not. I mean, the last time I'll play now like once every 3 months or something. But I was like, oh, I was so excited. Let's do
I'd
something
love to
new.
know who agrees to play with you.
No, I've
That's
played
not
with
something.
played with other tennis players, and I was like, no, this is not gonna work out. And then that was that. But yeah, so I think that we're constantly chasing that high, and I think that's why it takes some adjusting. You know, just when you have a child, like you have one, I have one, there's a rebirth or a readjustment that happens in your life. Even though you are the same person, your work is the same, everything is the same, but everything is shuffled. And then you shuffle everything around, and then you're like, okay, now I got to base everything around this. So the same way, like tennis was my baby, like literally. And like when that was gone,
Yeah.
I was like, what am I supposed to do now? You know, and it was literally what gave me everything in my life, right? Like literally who I am, why I am, my existence was because I played tennis and I was good at it.
You know, funnily, I feel very similarly about my work. I feel very dependent on my work.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it's the most positive thing, but I don't know any other way either. You know, I didn't start at 6, it was much later, it was like 17. But it was, I still feel like it was such a subconsciously, it's the only life I know is,
Yeah.
you know, one in which I've been creating content.
Yeah.
And it's become sometimes it just becomes such a part of your identity that it's so hard to separate who's Sania the human and then who's Sania the tennis superstar.
So I think that my parents did a pretty good job in trying to make me realize growing up, you know, in my younger days that Tennis was a very big part of my life. It was an important part of my life, but it wasn't my life. And I think that took a lot of pressure off me when I was younger. But the fact is that tennis became my life for me, because everything in my life that I am or have been or will be was because of tennis. And I would be Sania, but there would be no Sania Mirza without me playing tennis. So it's very difficult to separate the two. So I don't think that.
And you're okay with that?
Of course, I don't think I'm dependent on it. If I was dependent, I would still be playing tennis.
Do you ever regret it? In the last 1 year, have you ever felt like
No, I was ready. And after 3 surgeries and 2 knees and a wrist and a baby, um, I just, even though I had it in me, maybe like mentally to push a little bit more, maybe for another year. I mean, I was professional for 20 years, which is a long time. But I don't think I had it in me physically. Like I was just like my body was just giving up on me, saying that look, you really and it was very important for me to say that look, if I play, I want to play at the highest level. I just don't want to be mediocre because that's just not something that I could accept of myself. And also I wanted to the quality of life that I want after I stop playing tennis. I don't want to not be able to walk properly, right? Like I was already really, like I have a torn meniscus for the last 3 years and I'm not having another surgery because I just don't want to have another surgery, but like still like even when I play paddle, I feel my knee. So I'm still not able to live that complete normal life because of the very fact of that, the kind of,
you have the love bites from tennis?
Yeah, I don't know if they're love bites, but they're biting.
And the scars.
The scars, yeah. But they are, so for me, the quality of life of after I stopped playing, for my son, to be with him and stuff like that was very, very important. So no, I don't think I regret it. I think it was time. Anyway, I do miss certain things about it though. Yeah.
So what happens when a professional sports person retires?
Nothing happens.
What's
You wake up in the morning and there's nothing to do, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And you question every single thing about yourself and your existence for about a month because you're just like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Because for the first time in your life, going to the gym is not like going to our office, right? Going to the gym is just because you want to go to the gym. Usually we have a routine, 4 o'clock you're here, but I luckily actually was super busy because I do a lot of TV, So for me, I always knew I want to still be very involved in tennis. So that's how I started getting into, I already had TV before I fully retired. So I'm an ambassador for a channel for tennis, and so a lot of my days go in that. I do a lot of motivational speaking, which is very important for me.
So where do you do this? Where do you do all of this from? Does it always require you to travel?
Most of the time. But I do day trips to India.
Okay.
I literally go
to Dubai life.
The Dubai life, basically. So next week, I'm actually going. I'll go take the morning flight. I have a event. I'll do a small shoot. Fly back.
And when you take a day trip, is that also because you want to be back for your son?
Yeah. One of the reasons of my retirement also, not just the fact that, maybe I could have pushed another 6 months or whatever with my body, with pins and needles or physios and doctors. But one of my main things was also to try and spend as much time as I can with Izhan, because I feel like he's at that age, and he has been at that age since the time that they start going to school and stuff, where they really need a parent to be with them, to feel that security and stuff. And for me, I didn't want to miss out on that. And I felt that I have done enough. I have chased my dream enough. I've achieved enough of my dream. And it's time for me, because this is also part of my dream. When the first time that I left Izhan, he was 6 weeks old. And it was the hardest flight I think I have taken. I had to go to Delhi for a UN event, I remember, and I said, I can't do it. I can't leave him. It was like leaving a piece of my heart, right? And it was so dramatic. Only in our own heads is that dramatic, right? Because it's honestly not. Like, people do that all the time, and kids are absolutely fine. And we beat ourselves over it as mothers because we're just, very good at giving ourselves mom guilt. And I took the morning flight, and I was at that point I was still feeding him, so I had to like pump on the plane, and like all this was going on, like it was a nuisance. And I took that flight, and I'm so glad that I did, because if I wouldn't have taken that flight, I don't think I would have ever been able to leave him and work.
Do it again.
Because at that moment,
It's
and my
slipping
mom
that
was the one,
band-aid.
even then, my mom, she's like, go, what is wrong with you? She's like, he doesn't even know you're not here. Like, he's like 6 weeks old.
What she wanted to say but didn't say is he barely knows you.
I was like, no, he really needs me. And she's like, he really doesn't need you. And-
moms are the reality checks.
No,
that-
it really was. And,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that I went, right? And I did a morning evening from Hyderabad to Delhi. And I came back, and he was absolutely fine. I was absolutely fine. I shed a few tears here and there. And so I have never, the reason I'm saying this to you as an experienced mother is that I have never ever said to him that I'm not going out or snuck. That's because I always say to him, Mama always comes back, right? Because if you say that, if you sneak and then they find you, they don't find you there, then you're screwed. Because then that trust is gone.
So you mentioned pumping. Did you breastfeed?
Yeah, for about 3 months, 2.5, 3
Was
months.
it easy, hard?
For me, that was the hardest part of pregnancy, I have to say. I'm like, I will get pregnant 3 more times, but this feeding business, I don't know if I can do. For me, it was not the physical part of it. For me, the emotional and the mental part of it was draining. You really, and I think that us as working women, it really like ties you down, right? Because you feel like, because they're so dependent on it.
And
It's
there's a
basically
time
their food.
commitment.
And there's a time commitment, and there's not enough sleep, and then in the day it's like you're basing all your activities around when you need to feed the baby and stuff. And I did what was needful, like, and I was like, after like 3 months, I went to the pediatrician one day and I said, look, I've tried, I just can't do it. And he's like, try for another month. And I was like, I will lose my mind. Like, I will lose my mind. It was just very hard for me emotionally, because you almost like, you're already dealing with so many like things post pregnancy, right? Like, you're dealing with these hormones, and you're dealing with emotions, and you're constantly dealing with like
A new body.
And also like you're so used to seeing yourself a certain way physically. And I know it may sound like shallow, but it's the reality of what women go through. It's a huge, like, your confidence takes a big hit, and so many things. And then being in the public eye, like, then people are like body shaming you and all this stuff. So
And it's a mental shift. It's a mental rewiring.
it was just so hard. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was just, for me, knowing that this little human was totally dependent only on me providing food for him was a very difficult thing to just deal with, because I felt like, oh my God, if I'm not there, then I would feel so bad. Like, even though when I was pumping and I would go, and then, yeah, it was awful. And I spoke to few women, and all working women, and all of them have said like that was harder than for me, that was harder than the actual pregnancy. I'm telling you, like, my pregnancy was a breeze. Like, it was, it was great. I played tennis
I would
one
like
night
to
before.
agree with you.
Yeah. Like, one night before I played tennis, because I was 40 weeks pregnant and nothing was happening. So I was like, I might as well play tennis. So my doctor was like, go and do some activity. So we have a tennis court at home. So I played tennis.
Of course, you induced with a game of tennis. So we're not surprised.
Yeah. I played tennis the night before. I actually have a video of it.
So everyone eats Chinese food, but Sania Mirza is going to play her game. So but how is that? I love the name, by the way, Izan. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
How is from his until 4.5 is, I think, when you retired. How was that, right? Because he's so young and as world class athlete, how was that journey?
So I think that when he was younger, it was much easier to travel with him.
You were
So
traveling with him.
yeah, I had to. How I'm not going to leave him for 25 weeks a year. That also was a big toll. Like one of the, see, there were many reasons that I had to take a call of stopping to play. And then it was his school. Like he was growing older. So I didn't want him to miss school to travel and be a nomad for like 25 weeks a year at 4. Um, and the first time that we traveled was to Australia and Hobart. He was 13 months, 14 months old. It was 14 months. It was January. And the first tournament I played, I won after I became a mother. And even though I won so many bigger tournaments than that, that one remains super special for me because it was so significant, because the hard work that you put in after becoming a mother, um, taking out hours of training, and I was training like as I had him also. I started working out 3 weeks after, and so you had to take out time in between feeding and then in between, doing
Yeah, absolutely.
all
That's
this stuff.
working out is work for you.
Yeah,
It's your
it was a work. No, it was working out and then practicing. So it was like 4-5 hours of the day. It just felt so wholesome to win that very tournament.
Was he
Uh,
watching you?
he was, but he didn't understand. So he obviously started understanding winning and losing and stuff over the last 2.5 years. I think he always knew, and even now he doesn't understand the full concept of fame but for his reality is that he always saw random people coming up to both his parents and taking pictures. So that's his reality, like it must be odd for other kids, but for him that's very normal. So now, like, if people come to him and say, "Can I have a picture?" he just stands. Like, he doesn't question it. He doesn't find it weird. And I have to tell him, like, look, don't take pictures with
It's a part of his normal.
like, don't take picture with strangers. Like, and then he's like, "But why you are taking?" so, so I had to explain to him. But now he's a bit older, so he understands. So he told me, I first he asked me things like he would ask me things like, how do people always know your name is Sania Mirza? Like, how do they always come to you and say your name is Sania Mirza? And I said, I used to play tennis, right? And because I play tennis that I was playing. So I said, because I'm playing tennis. So he said, yeah, so I said, yeah. And so he said, because you're good. So I said, yeah, because I'm on TV.
I'm kind of good.
Like, so I was like, I'm on TV sometimes. So he said, okay. Now he said me, now I know, because you were number one in the world. That is why people take your pictures all the time. When I become, so he is football obsessed, basically. And he's a super competitive guy. So he's telling me 2 days ago that, Mom, so he plays tennis and football. And he said, Mom, when will I decide if I'm going to be a football player or a tennis player? So I said, I don't know, around 12, 13, whichever one you're better at, you can do whatever you want. She's like, at 12, when did you decide? So I said, at 12. So he said, at 12, I'm going to do both. And then whichever one I'm better at, I'm going to do that. So he understands the concept now of winning and losing and doing better and stuff. But initially, like when he was 14 months and stuff, it was easier to travel with him. But as he became more mobile, it was a lot harder to travel with him, no? Because to keep him contained on planes,
but
like,
also you need, there's a whole, I've done 3 work trips with my son, and there's a whole tam jham that comes
the
with it,
entire, first of all, it was like what Bharat used to go, the nanny is going, my mother is going, and then my trainer, physio coach and all have become secondary. I was like, what is this? Like, I'm not able to understand. I'm going to play a tennis tournament, or what is this? We're going to a nursery.
Absolutely.
So two people are going, he's going, and I needed it because unfortunately, I didn't want him to be contained to one room, and like I was also like, I was like, I want him to go out and do this, whatever, even when I'm playing this, that. It was challenging. I mean, I won't lie, how can it not be one trip with a child and people come back and they're like, I need a holiday.
Exactly. So I took my son to Cannes Film Festival, and he was about 6 months old. and I'm giving it. And in Canada, the apartments are all so small. The entire team is staying together in that apartment. I'm doing an interview in the hall, and Sir decides to wake up from his nap, like howling. So it's just, even in those moments, and we do like a 2-3 day trip because it just economically makes sense to that the team is flying in. You don't want to extend it too
Yeah.
much. We're trying to cram so much work in those few days, but then you're, you're still having to prioritize what the baby wants and needs, because when you keep looking at when you looking at the larger picture, you're like,
And I think that's what mothers have to be so, credited for, because men and women, and that's why I said when it's not an equal world. Right at the
it's not.
beginning of this conversation, I said it's not an equal
Absolutely not.
world, because as men and women, we both are part of creating a human being. They get back to work and they get back to doing what they want and take work trips. And we as women, yes, we get back to doing that as well. But we also have to do this whole and most of the time, right? Like if there's a ratio, even though a lot of women might say, yeah, no, my husband is very like hands on. Yeah, he might be hands on, but like in a ratio, it'll still be a 75-25. It's not going to be a 50-50. It just cannot be, because
And
those are the roles.
why do you think that is?
I think that those are the roles that have been defined over generations and over time, where a woman is supposed to be the caretaker of the family, is supposed to be the homemaker, is supposed to um, make sure everything is okay and all that. And then came women like us who said, no, but we also want to work and we also want to do things that are outside of the box, that is not just being a teacher or a doctor or whatever it is, a normal 9 to 5 job. We want to do things like this. And
I think we as women are also unlearning that part, that era of life.
I think that is a mother's instinct, and I don't think we can ever unlearn that. I don't think that's ever happening.
No, but I do think we take on way more than
We need to.
we need to.
100%. 100% we do, but I'm saying that also comes a lot from instinct, right? So then there's, like I said, then there's women like us who say, no, but we want to work and we want to do things and we want to travel and achieve things that are different. And that's where the whole problem comes in, because then people assume that we should choose. And my question is, if the man is not supposed to choose, then why are we supposed to choose? Right? So then they're like, yeah, but if you want to do this, then you shouldn't have had a child, na? Right? How many times have we heard that in our lives? नहीं, अगर तुम्हें फिरना था तो तुमने बच्चा क्यों किया? Like, so because that is the way the world works, and we're so tuned to telling women that they need to choose between saving your marriage or saving your home and work. How many women are told that you should choose, you have to take care of your husband or you have to take care of your home? How will you do it if you're going to work? But for me, the problem is not the question. For me, the problem is that the question should be asked to both people.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't have a problem with the question at all, and I'll happily give an answer to that. But for me, the problem is that if you're asking me that question, then you better be asking the man the exact same question. Because it took two people to create a human being. Two people are responsible for this child. But all of a sudden, once the child happens, the man happily goes back to doing as if the life was as is from before.
The next day
or the next week or whenever, right? But the woman is the one who's basically now thinking, okay, now what do I do with my life? Like, am I a full-time mother? Am I a full-time worker? Am I a worker and a mother? I'm not going to say that every single person in the world is like that. But I think the solid majority is.
Especially in India. Right?
I think in the subcontinent for sure. Yes. I think for sure, because the subcontinent is a more... See, coming back to our first statement that I made, do we live in an equal world? No. And that world also includes the West. We also don't live in an equal world in the West. It's just that there are some countries or areas of the world that inequality is more pronounced than the others. And unfortunately, there are some places, even within the country, where there's more, patriarchy than there's, let's say, in another part of the country, no? So the same way, it's the same in the world also.
Personally, have you ever felt like, professionally, I know there's been a lot of, and I'm going to come to that, but personally, have you ever felt like you've been in a position where the patriarchy has been impossible to digest?
Of course, many times. I mean, many times. I definitely think that. Have you ever heard of a man being questioned about his outfit? No, right? Like any sport, anywhere in the world, a man will never be questioned saying, "Why are you wearing that and playing?" They might comment on it, but there's not going to be a controversy on it, no? So I think that that is just one small example in like
And
such
so
a
what
large.
happened when what was your reaction?
I mean, I was
Because
18 years
it's like
old.
tennis attire, right?
No, but I was 18 years old, and at that time, it was a lot was media created, unfortunately, because that was what was selling. So, like I said, it got boring to talk about now forehand and backhand, and also they were started
So
talking about all this nonsense. Yeah, they didn't want to talk about me winning, and they didn't want, because that was just because as long as the sports journalists and stuff were there, it was fine. It's when this tabloid started getting involved, then they get into all this kind of stuff, So it was so blown out of proportion. So I'm just saying that there are many small instances in my life that some made the paper, some didn't make the paper, some happened over a conversation, some happened over media, some happened at a press conference.
Yeah. What about personally? Professionally, yes. And did you ever, there's so many times the reason I ask this question is because there are so many times that you're Sania Mirza to the world, but people still forget that behind closed doors, right? There is a certain, you've earned that title, you've worked for it. And there's still there is that patriarchy that comes at play.
But patriarchy is within us. So it's not going to change just because I'm Sania Mirza or somebody else is not. It doesn't matter. Patriarchy comes in different shapes and forms, and it comes in different languages, and it comes at different faces made at you. It comes at social media. I mean, you go on social media and you see the trolls. The kind of trolling a woman gets and the kind of trolling a man gets, even in that there's patriarchy. Right? For me, like when a man and a woman walk into an office to offer an interview for a job, or a man and a woman walk on a tennis court to play, doing the exact same thing, the woman will always first be judged by the way that she looks. That's the reality of life, unfortunately. First, they will judge that, then they will see her credentials. But the man, it doesn't matter how he looks. He will first be judged by the way he speaks or by the way that he carries himself. There'll be stuff like that.
You'll see the person first.
Yeah, they will see, what is he bringing to this job? But the woman, the first thing will be like, oh, nice looking woman, or not nice looking woman, or fat woman, or thin woman, or whatever, like, oh my God, she's a bit overweight. Oh, even when we get pregnant, like you're constantly told of like, oh my God, like, oh, you've put on this weight, when are you going to lose it? And then people expect you, the minute you pop the baby, that 25 kilos that you put on must just disappear like it's gone,
on
right?
on
the table as you have delivered the baby, the 25, because after 1 week when they see you come out of the hospital and say, oh my God, she's still looking so fat, like, I mean, what are you expecting? So I'm just saying that patriarchy is so within us. It's so deeply like engraved in our beings. It's going to take a few generations more for it to come out. And that patriarchy, unfortunately, is there in women as well.
Yes,
towards them.
Of course.
Because they themselves, I think, don't feel.
It's also them reflecting their insecurities.
So no, I'm saying like, people talk about women empowerment, right? Like this word is like thrown around a lot, like women empowerment this and women empowerment that, and we're doing this for women empowerment. But the empowerment of a woman comes from within. First and foremost, you have to feel like an empowered woman to be able to command the respect and equal treatment from other people, men or women. But if you only don't think that you deserve it,
Deserving of it.
if you're not deserving of it in your own mind, how is somebody else going to give you that? Right? So, coming back to, if you get to be a content creator and you get to have a child, and so does your husband, let's say, for example, and he's not questioned for it, but you're questioned for it, saying, but what do you do with your child? How many times have you gotten, so what do you do with your child when you're traveling? Has people asked you that? For me, they used to be like, Aapka beta ka hai? I was like, I'm in the supermarket, I don't need him on my hip. Like he's safe. What does your son do when you're practicing? What does your son do when I said some weeks I leave him? I leave him 1 week, when I was playing, I would leave him with my mom here and there. And I'd be like, yeah, but I'm going only for a week. What? Who is he with? Oh my God. I'm like, he will survive. Like, I mean, because the world is so fast to put us on this guilt trip of like, you're a woman and you're doing this. You're a woman and you're leaving your child. You're a woman and you're not taking care of the house. You're a woman. Like, I don't know how to cook, for example. That's just I hate cooking.
Same pinch.
Yeah. I'm not interested only in that. Like, I'd like to eat, but
Yeah.
I was like,
I love to eat.
Yeah,
I love to eat.
I just don't have the patience to cook. So that is a norm. Like, this becomes a norm that because you're a woman, you must know how to cook by.
Yeah.
So it's so
So
deep,
there are, of course, I think society has these preconceived notions.
Yeah.
And set sort of
norms,
buckets, categories that I think we are needed to perform in. But I think there's a change. Like today, when exactly how someone's asking the supermarket, I'm asked this question constantly, right? Like, where is he? What is he doing? When you're traveling, who takes care of him? I said, I'm married for a reason. I've had a child with
No, but
with a partner for a reason as well.
at the time when I was playing, I was married, and so many times, like, there would be, because Izan's father also played cricket, which involved a lot of travel, and obviously predominantly he would be with me traveling, because obviously he was younger. And if I would leave him for a week and go, like, I've had people question me, and I was like, why? I said, do you know the last time that his father saw him? It was 6 weeks ago.
Why aren't you questioning
Yeah.
him?
So I'm saying it's not that that's a wrong thing. He's doing his job. There's no problem with that. But my problem with the question is it needs to be two ways. That is my only thing. I'm like, you question. There's no issue. But if you're questioning me or questioning a woman, then you make sure that same question is for the guy. So now we will have to have many millions of these conversations for it
to just normalize, right?
Yeah.
I think it's about that one person hearing this and asking the man this question. And I think that's where the change begins and continues to follow through.
Yeah, and I think that having said all of this, I think that the change has begun. I think there are more and more people and more men, especially, who are ready to take on that 50-50 role. I just don't think they're enough yet. Because if they were enough, then the entire society would be. And I also don't think there are enough women who believe that should be the case.
Exactly.
So it all goes hand in hand. That's why I said it's within us, because as women also, we have to take the responsibility of bringing about change.
And so many women don't have that expectation, Sania. Right? They don't have that. They don't agree for that to be the norm. They think that is the exception.
Yeah. So we are the exceptions.
Yeah.
We are the weirdos, right? Like, we're the weirdos who are putting, like, both of us who are sitting here right now and our kids are at home safe. But we are the weirdos
But
because
not okay.
we are the weirdos because we're sitting here and we have neglected them over the last 2 hours, right? Neglected them over the last 2 hours because we're here to work.
Yeah.
And when this starts to become normal, and I don't think that if we were two men sitting here, that question would even come up. It wouldn't even cross anybody's mind.
And going back to Sania, we have someone very young watching this video and they want to become a sports person professionally. What is that toll on your body? And what is that reality check that, you have to be aware of?
I think what's very important to understand is that to be realistic in your dreams and to be realistic in your approach. Even if you're unrealistic in your dreams, be realistic in your approach, because you can say, I want to be number one in the world, but if you don't have the talent, then you're not going to get there. So make sure that the people that are around you, which is whoever it may be, your family, your team, your coaches, they are very much in touch with reality and not living in la la land that, you need to reassess and assess your goals as you keep going. I remember when I was 8, was the first time I played a tournament in Hyderabad and I beat a 16-year-old girl. It was a state tournament. Obviously, at that point, that's a no-brainer, right? Oh my God, she's so good. But then, if at 10 I'm still not continuing with that, we need to reassess and say, oh, is she really that good? You shouldn't just live in the thing saying, okay, acha nahi, 2 saal pehle she has done that. So it doesn't work like that. But in my graph, it kept getting better. But there are many people in their graphs it didn't keep getting better. I mean, there were hundreds and thousands of girls that used to play also when I was playing, and they didn't make it, unfortunately. So I think it's very important to be realistic in understanding your capacity, your talents, because yes, like this is again going back to the first question you asked, commitment, sacrifice, luck, destiny, everything. But talent is also something that you need, no? Like all this stuff is one side, but if you don't have the talent, Virat Kohli won't be Virat Kohli, or Rohit Sharma won't be Rohit Sharma, or Sania Mirza won't be Sania Mirza, or Saina Nehwal won't be Saina Nehwal. You need to have all those things. So it's a package that kind of goes together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. It's been very valuable insights and hope everyone's enjoyed.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.